As Prime Minister of Great Britain, Sir Keir Starmer has a huge responsibility, and he's not fit for it. That's not hyperbole. That's not political point scoring. That's an assessment based on his actions since taking office in July 2024. In less than a year, Starmer has managed to achieve something remarkable, uniting people across the political spectrum in disappointment and disbelief. Today, we're examining whether his premiership represents the biggest betrayal by a UK leader in modern history. Let's start with what Starmer promised. During the election campaign, he positioned himself as the antidote to years of conservative chaos. He pledged integrity, stability, economic growth, and a fresh start for Britain. The Labour manifesto was carefully costed, deliberately cautious. No big tax rises for working people, he said. We'll fix the NHS, rebuild trust in politics, and restore Britain's standing on the world stage. Fast forward 6 months, and the reality couldn't be more different. Within weeks of taking office, Starmer's government announced they'd discovered a black hole in public finances, a convenient excuse to break multiple manifesto commitments. The autumn budget brought tax increases that hit working people hard, despite explicit promises to the contrary. National insurance contributions for employers shot up, a move that economists warned would suppress wages and job creation. Energy bills remained painfully high, and those waiting lists at the NHS still growing. But the economic U-turns are just the beginning. The bigger question is about character, judgment, and whether Starmer has any genuine principles at all. Nothing has damaged Starmer's credibility more than the revelations about freebies and gifts. Here's a man who spent years lecturing the Conservatives about sleaze and corruption, who promised to clean up politics, who presented himself as morally superior. And then we discovered he'd accepted tens of thousands of pounds worth of gifts, designer suits, expensive glasses, Arsenal tickets, even clothing for his wife. The total, over £100,000 in gifts and hospitality, making him the highest recipient of freebies in Parliament. His defense? Technically within the rules. But that's exactly the kind of excuse he condemned when Conservatives used it. The hypocrisy is staggering. This is a prime minister who literally changed the rules on winter fuel payments for pensioners, cutting support for millions of elderly people while accepting free designer clothes. Think about the optics. Pensioners choosing between heating and eating, while the prime minister wears suits paid for by wealthy donors. It's not just bad politics, it's morally bankrupt. And when challenged, instead of showing contrition, Starmer became defensive and dismissive. That's not leadership. That's entitlement. Beyond the freebies, there's a growing list of policy failures and broken promises. Immigration was supposed to be controlled with a practical, managed approach. Instead, channel crossings continue unabated, and Starmer abandoned the Rwanda scheme without any credible alternative in place. Crime and antisocial behavior were meant to be priorities, yet victims see little change on the ground. On the international stage, Starmer has been weak and inconsistent. His handling of relations with European neighbors has been clumsy. His response to global crises has lacked conviction. Remember, this was supposed to be the return of grown-up government. Instead, we've seen student politics masquerading as statecraft. Perhaps most damaging is the complete absence of a compelling vision for Britain's future. What does Starmer actually believe in? What is his plan beyond managing decline? These questions remain unanswered. His government feels like a placeholder, marking time rather than making history. And for a leader who came to power promising transformation, that's a devastating verdict. The NHS reforms? Vague promises with no detail. Economic growth strategy? Non-existent beyond hoping investment will magically appear. Housing crisis? Still getting worse. This isn't just disappointing, it's a comprehensive failure to deliver on the most basic expectations of government. So, is this the biggest betrayal by a UK Prime Minister? That's a high bar. We've had leaders who took us into questionable wars, who crashed the economy, who were forced from office in disgrace. But what makes Starmer's case particularly galling is the gap between rhetoric and reality. He won power by promising to be different, to restore integrity, to put country before party. Every broken promise, every freebie accepted, every U-turn makes a mockery of those claims. This isn't about left versus right. It's about honesty versus dishonesty, principle versus opportunism. Voters across the spectrum feel cheated, not because they disagree with specific policies, but because they feel fundamentally misled about who Keir Starmer actually is. That breach of trust may prove unforgivable. Whether Starmer's premiership represents the ultimate political betrayal will be for history to judge, but one thing is already clear. He has squandered an enormous opportunity and broken faith with the British people. He had a mandate for change and chose mediocrity. He promised integrity and delivered hypocrisy. And Britain deserves so much better.